God, in these human words which I speak, may there be a word from you, heard in our minds and in our hearts, that we might be made truly alive for your sake. Amen. Please be seated. I personally really enjoy big dramatic weather events. I love a really intense, violent thunderstorm. The more inches of snow predicted, the more excited I get. The novelty of hail tends to feel fun for me, as long as, the damage is kept to a minimum, of course. And I think probably some of that's a holdover from childhood, right? When intense weather caused really pleasant disruptions, like a snow day home from school. And I can confess that I have never been in a boat like this one during a storm like this one. This is probably a sailboat of not more than 30 feet long, and with the boat being tossed about and already filling with water, I can appreciate that even the disciples, as seasoned fishermen as they were downright terrified. Mother Nature is indifferent and often violent and stronger than we are, of course, and then here's Jesus just sleeping through it all until they wake him, convinced that they are about to die. Rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he speaks peace into the storm, and it works, right? Calm returns, everyone is safe, a miracle. But I wonder if this is really a story about Jesus calming a storm. It is that, of course, and that's what catches our attention and has us classifying this as another Jesus miracle story. But I wonder if the real action in this reading actually isn't primarily in Jesus calming the storm. My hunch is that the real crux of it all happens in the first two sentences and in the last sentence. So I want us to talk about three particular moments in this story this morning. So first we have Jesus saying to his disciples, let us go across to the other side. And that's expected, right? When you have a boat and a lake, you paddle to the other shore. But while this is certainly a literal crossing of the water, it is easy for us to miss, I think, as modern readers, that it's also, and importantly, a symbolic and a metaphorical crossing. Because the other side of the Sea of Galilee in this passage, the other side represents and is Gentile territory. It's hostile territory. This could be a dangerous or even a foolhardy decision. This is the Decapolis that they are crossing over to. So the Roman Empire, this is Roman territory. So Jesus might as well be saying, okay guys, this has been a great success over here on friendly shores. I sure am tired though, so let's go touch base with the Roman occupation and I'll just catch a nap on the way over. It's mind-boggling when you sort of zoom out and think about it in wide frame, right? First, let's go to hostile territory, but also he's so unbothered by this prospect that he's able to catch a nap on the way. So this storm that kicks up on their way over seems to me, in a certain sense, to be really predictable, at least literarily speaking. It's like when you're watching a movie and there's this sort of really heavy-handed foreshadowing, right? The intrepid group presses on into a dangerous situation and the sky darkens and the clouds gather and you start to hear thunder and see lightning, right? And so that's how we as the audience know that they're headed for trouble. But the storm in these movies isn't the trouble, right? It's just the illustration of it, the color. It's showing us that we ought to be nervous for them if we aren't already. So what I'm getting at here is that I think that the real action of this story is actually in Jesus deciding that it is, yes, time to cross yet another boundary. And he keeps doing this, right, over and over throughout his ministry, and they get more and more dangerous. The stakes seem to get higher and higher. as he goes along. And yet here he is taking a nap, which is related to the second thing that I want us to notice in this passage this morning. In the second sentence, it says that these fishermen disciples take Jesus in the boat just as he was. So, in other words, no preparation, no game plan, no second thoughts, no weapons or gear or tricks up his sleeve as he sets a course for confrontation with the unfamiliar, with the hostile, perhaps, sets a course for confirmation and also sets his alarm to go down for a nap. So just as he was, it feels simultaneously so very vulnerable, but also so powerful, right? Jesus is so confident here and grounded and unafraid, so calm and collected that he is able to nap on the way over. This is a mind-boggling level of self-possession and inner peace. And those inner peace and self-possession are related to the third thing that I want us to notice. In the last sentence of this passage, where the disciples who have been traveling with him, they've been hearing him teach and seeing him heal, in this moment, after he calms the storm, they see him anew, don't they? And they ask with awe, who is this? Who then is this that even the wind and the sea obey him? Who is this Jesus who sleeps through storms, who offers us a still and quiet space in wild and terrifying places, who chooses to go toward danger in search of what good he can do rather than resting in the good that he's already done, where all is familiar and safe, who can and will talk to anyone, sinners and saints and detractors and Samaritans and the legion of demons waiting for him at Gerasa on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and even this storm itself. He will talk to anyone. So who is this man? And so, of course, at this point, the disciples must also be asking themselves just what they've gotten themselves into, right? And I think if we're really paying attention to who Jesus is and what following him means, we should probably be asking ourselves the same question. Because we know that Jesus calms the storm and heals the sick and feeds the hungry and still ends up on a Roman cross. He does all of that and asks us to follow him. So what have we gotten ourselves into? What does Jesus want from us, really? Always, 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 over and over again, I see Jesus extending to us an invitation, right? He continues to invite us to leave our safe and familiar shores where we know how to move and operate, we know what to expect and who we'll encounter, we know where to find shelter from the storms when they come up, and they do, right? Jesus invites us to leave those shores where we found success, where we know the folks around us, and find comfort in their familiarity, in our shared culture and values. He invites us to leave the safety of what we know so that we might find ourselves anew in encountering what we don't know, fearsome though it may be. While we are busy protecting what is familiar to us and acting out of our fear of danger and abandonment, don't you care that we are perishing, Jesus, we ask? He gently invites us to see that there's a whole world beyond our small, safe selves, beyond the things that we already know so well. A world that might enlargen us and enliven us and awaken us in new ways as we encounter difference, as we encounter things that we might already or might be afraid of, right? And here's the thing, that is a new birth in a sense, and sometimes it does feel like dying. Sometimes it does feel like we're perishing. Other times we might be able to recognize it a little more easily. Right? I was thinking about the excitement of learning new things as a child, right? I remember as a very small child being fascinated, as so many kids are, with, and delighted too, by the utter strange and fearsome otherness of dinosaurs, right? Or maybe this one's better, learning how to ride a bike, and the way that fear of falling gave way to this sort of gleeful exhilaration. I was only riding around the church parking lot, but it felt like the world was bigger all of a sudden, right? No longer needing the training wheels on this perfect purple bike with a basket and a banana seat and handlebar streamers, you know? And so suddenly the world was a little bigger and I was moving through it a little differently, which didn't mean that it wasn't scary, and it didn't mean that there weren't skinned knees. There were, but you know, you master it eventually. It's its own sort of fearful but delightful crossing into something bigger, into a riskier but more rewarding life. Jesus invites us not once but continually, over and over again, to seek out encounter with what is unfamiliar to us, what is fearsome to us, so that we might get larger and deeper, right? So that we might be transformed and enriched. So that, fearful as it is, we might fall in love with life and with difference and with the world, in love with it as Jesus was, as God is. And in the month of June, we celebrate Pride and Juneteenth, and we perhaps travel to unfamiliar places. Our routines might change. So we see really clearly that invitation to enlargement, right, through encounter. The invitation to be delighted by difference. Or at least, at the very least, to engage it and to see that when we are sailing with peace itself asleep in the stern, difference is no threat to us. If this is a miracle story, then for me, it's the miracle of encounter and enlargement, of delight and wonder that really gets my attention. Who is this who invites us to step out into the stormy unknown so that our world might be expanded, our understanding, our sense of ourselves might be expanded? Who is this who extends that invitation to venture forth, come what may, and who embodies the peace that allows us to cross to the other side, even through the storm, even despite our fear? Maybe all I really know in answer to that question is that I think it's an invitation worth accepting, and that, fearful as I may be, as I often am, peace itself is right there in the boat. Amen.